Hello, everyone.
Hello everyone, wishing you a gentle and wonderful day.
Tonight's story begins with a simple, peaceful dinner
Tonight's story
until
begins
one
with a
phone call
simple,
from Hanoi
peaceful
changes everything. A
Until
lead,
one phone call from
thin
Hanoi
as a
changes
lullaby,
everything.
could finally reveal the truth about Tudiep's missing mother.
A
But
lead,
someone sends a
thin as
warning.
lullaby, could finally reveal the
Don't
truth.
chase old
Someone
stories.
sends a warning.
Will James bring the truth home with warmth? Or will it arrive like fire? If this story touches your heart, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our future videos. Thought for 1 minute, 57 seconds, the morning didn't feel dramatic. It felt clean. Not perfect, not easy, just clean. Like the air after rain, when the world looks washed and quiet and you can hear your own breathing again. The stove crackled in the kitchen. Outside, water hit soil with a soft patter, and the yard smelled of damp earth and crushed basil. Diep moved through it all like she was resetting the world back to normal. She didn't rush. She didn't stop to admire anything. She simply did what needed doing. One cup, one step, one careful check at a time. Because peace, for her, was something you built with your hands. Behind her, little Nee followed in small slippers, a stuffed orange tucked under her arm. She yawned so wide her eyes watered, but her voice stayed steady, important. "I'm on inspection," she announced. Diep smiled. "2 plants only," she said. "Then rest." Nai nodded like she'd been promoted. "Yes." The dog trotted beside them, nose to the ground, then sat near the path as if he were the official peace officer of the property. Present, calm, satisfied. At the coop, Diep did her usual checks: straw dry, water stable, corners safe. She pressed a stone edge with her thumb, feeling for any shift. When it didn't move, her shoulders lowered a fraction, so small you could miss it, unless you knew what it meant to live with your body always ready. "Approved," Nai declared, chin lifted. Diep laughed, warm and surprised. "You're very strict." "Safety is strict," Nai replied, repeating words she'd heard and decided to keep. For a moment, Diep watched her daughter and felt that familiar mixture. Love so big it crowded her chest, and a thin ribbon of fear underneath it. Because when you have lost important things, even happiness feels like something you must guard. She turned away quickly, wiping her hands on her pants like she was just being practical, and told herself, "Today is simple. Let it stay simple." Inside the house, James was already dressed for work. Shirt buttoned, hair neat, shoes on. But he didn't rush out. He watched Diep pour hot water into 2 cups, steam rising in pale ribbons. And he noticed something he always notices when she looks calm. Her calm is not easy. It is built. Built from nights she didn't sleep, listening for trouble that might return. Built from the way she keeps her voice gentle for Nai even when her mind is loud. Built from a decision she makes again and again, not to let fear run the house. "You okay today?" James asked softly, as if checking the foundation. Diep nodded. "I'm good. Just work." James held her gaze a beat longer, then said, "Tonight, we finished the bathroom." Diep blinked. Hope flickered across her face, careful, like a candle in wind. Then she smiled. "Okay," she said. "That would help." To someone else, it was just a bathroom. To her, it was dignity, warm water, privacy. One more corner of the home that felt complete. James kissed Nai's forehead. "School," he said. "Good child certificate, okay?" Nai saluted with the stuffed orange. "Yes, Dad." Tudep watched them, and her heart softened in that old, familiar way. Ordinary moments were never ordinary to her. They were proof. At the company, James walked into pressure like he always did. Quiet control, clear priorities. The office smelled of paper and coffee. People greeted him, but he didn't wear his title like armor. Today wasn't just about numbers. Today was about people. He sat with his team and finalized the TET bonus plan the way he handled everything now. Clean categories. No favorites. No confusion. 3 years gets this, he said, tapping the paper. 2 years gets this. 1 year gets this. If anyone asks, we explain it with math, not feelings. A manager let out a breath and smiled. The workers are going to be relieved. James nodded once. Relief matters. Someone suggested gifts. People like gift baskets, they said. James didn't argue. He corrected the purpose. People like respect, he replied. Keep gifts practical. If cash helps more, we lean cash. He stood to leave, then added one final line, quiet enough that everyone leaned in. I'm not taking my own TET bonus this year, he said. Put it toward the hardest cases. No speech, no performance, just a decision. Late afternoon, when he returned to Hill Fruits. He didn't walk in like CEO. He walked in like home. Diep had already closed the shop, washed her hands, and packed a small bag of seedlings for the stream field. They were tender, their roots wrapped in damp cloth, smelling faintly green and alive. Nai ran up with a piece of paper held like a treasure. I drew a bathroom plan, she announced. Diep laughed. A bathroom plan? Nai pointed at crooked lines. Door, water, no cold. James squatted to look, dead serious, honoring her effort. This is advanced, he said. Nai nodded. Approved? James grinned. Approved. Then James's father showed up, quiet, direct, no warning, standing in the yard like he'd already decided he belonged in the work. His face was lined, his hands strong, his silence full of practical care. He looked at the porch corner and said, rough but steady. You're building it here? Diep pointed to the back corner. There. Less wind? James's father studied the yard, then nodded once. Better. No lecture. No argument. Just agreement. They worked in a steady rhythm, James measured. His father steadied boards. Diep checked edges like she was protecting future bruises before they happened. Running her palm along the wood, imagining Nai's small body moving through this space years from now. Safe, Nai inspected everything, stepping back, squinting, declaring good and not good with serious authority. The dog stayed close, shifting when someone moved, as if guarding the family's quiet progress. As the sun lowered, the yard changed color, gold to amber to dusk. The new frame of the bathroom stood there, real enough to touch, real enough to believe. Diep felt relief come in slowly, like warm water filling a basin. By dinner time, she grilled something simple, and the smell of smoke and sizzling meat wrapped around the house like a blanket. Rice steamed, plates clinked softly. The day, for once, felt gentle. Tudep watched James chew in that absent-minded way he had when he was thinking. She told herself to enjoy the small sounds, the dog's nails on the floor, Nye humming with her mouth full, her father-in-law's quiet approval in the way he reached for another bite. And then James's phone buzzed. Not a text, a call. He looked at the screen and felt his pulse tighten, quick and sharp, like a string pulled too suddenly. The phone buzzed on the table, a small sound that shouldn't have had power. But in that warm kitchen, smoke still lingering from the grill, rice still steaming, James felt it like a knock on a door he'd been holding shut with both hands. He didn't grab it immediately. He kept his face calm, the way he did when a child's eyes could read fear faster than words. Still, Tudep saw the change in him, a tightening at the jaw, a stillness behind the eyes. Nye pointed her chopsticks at the dog. "No stealing," she warned, solemn as a little judge. The dog blinked and lowered his head to the floor, choosing peace. The phone buzzed again. James pushed his chair back quietly. "I'll take this outside," he said. Outside. The yard breathed cool air against his skin. Basil and damp soil mixed into a scent that meant home. The screen read one word that made his stomach tighten. Hanoi. He answered softly. "Yes." The voice on the other end was careful and professional. "We narrowed the lead," the caller said. "We located a neighborhood contact who recognizes the photo context and the lullaby pattern." James swallowed. A lullaby wasn't evidence on paper. It was memory. "How strong?" he asked. "Strong enough to request a face-to-face verification." The voice replied. "Not with her directly yet, through a trusted intermediary. But it requires you to come." James stared into the dark. In his mind, he saw Tudep's face, hope that never dared to stand up too quickly, fear that never fully sat down. "When?" he asked. "As soon as you can," the voice said, "before anyone else forces the timing." James didn't need to ask who anyone else was. Mr. Hoan had been circling, trying to insert himself into this story like it belonged to him, trying to turn a missing mother into leverage. James lowered his voice. "No contact unless I'm present," he said. "No pressure. No surprises." "Understood," the voice replied. "We do this clean. Clean." That word mattered. Clean meant no ambush. Clean meant Tudep would not be hit by truth like a thrown stone. James ended the call and stood still for 2 slow breaths. Then his phone buzzed again. An unknown number. A message. Short and smooth. "James, don't chase old stories. They don't end well." Cold moved through him, sharp and immediate. He didn't reply. He saved the number instead. Evident, not emotion. He walked back inside, carrying the weight carefully. Tudep looked up at once. "You got a work call," she said, calm but watchful. James sat down slowly and placed the phone face down. "Yeah," he admitted. "Something I've been verifying." Tudep's hands paused over the plates. Her eyes held his. "Is it about my mother?" The question landed softly, but it was heavy. James heard years inside it, the not knowing, the way she had learned to live with an empty space and still smile for her child. "It's getting closer," he said gently, "but I'm not done confirming." Diep breathed in, slow and controlled. Then, very quietly, "Promise me one thing." "Anything," James said. "If it's true," she whispered. "I hear it from you. Not from strangers, not from rumors." James reached across the table and took her hand, holding it firmly, as if anchoring her to the present. I promise," he said. "Warmth, not fire." For a moment, her eyes shone, relief and fear braided together. Warmth meant time. Warmth meant she wouldn't be made into a spectacle. Nai popped up, proud and loud. "I heard warmth!" Diep's laugh came out with a tremble in it. "Yes," she said, turning to her daughter. "Warmth." Ni pointed at the stove like it was proof. "That warmth!" The room loosened. The laughter was small, but it was real, and it gave everyone permission to breathe. James's father looked at him once, steady and direct. "Oh, if you go," he said. "Go careful." Then he nodded, as if the matter was settled. Later, when Ni finally fell asleep with her stuffed orange tucked under her chin, the house grew quiet in that tender way it does when a child is safe. The dog curled near her bed like a little guard. Diep paused at the doorway and watched her daughter breathe. She smoothed a strand of hair off Ni's forehead and felt that old ache, love so big it scared her. For a moment she pictured her own mother's hand, long ago, doing the same. In the kitchen, James packed a small bag, a change of clothes, documents, the practical pieces of a trip he hadn't wanted to take without certainty. Then he reached for one simple thing that wasn't paperwork, a small bar of jasmine soap. He placed it on the counter and stared at it for a second. Jasmine meant clean hands, clean truth, a promise kept gently. Diep stood in the doorway, watching. She didn't demand explanations, but she wasn't fooled by quiet packing. "You're leaving tomorrow," she said. James nodded. "One day, maybe overnight." Diep stepped closer, her voice lowered so it wouldn't carry. "Are you afraid?" she asked, not accusing, just honest. James paused. "I'm careful," he said. "And I'm angry that someone thinks they can steer this with threats." He tapped the phone once. "But I won't let them." Diep nodded, absorbing that. "Bring the truth back clean," she whispered. James leaned forward and touched his forehead to hers. "The way you do when words are too rough for what you're trying to hold." "I will," he said. "And when I tell you, I'll do it here, in our kitchen, with the stove on, with time, with you safe." Diep closed her eyes for a heartbeat, as if she could already feel that warmth, the familiar counter, the kettle's sound, the truth arriving without violence. Then she nodded. "Go," she said, steady, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she refused to let fear choose their future. When the lights were off, James stood a moment in the dark hallway and listened to Nui's soft breathing. He thought of the message, "Don't chase old stories." He thought of Mr. Hwan's shadow, and he thought of Tudiep's one request, warmth, not fire, outside, The new bathroom frame stood in the night like a promise taking shape. The house held the kind of peace that had been built, day by day. Somewhere beyond that yard, Hanoi waited with a truth that could heal or hurt depending on who held it. James tightened the strap of his small bag. Tomorrow, he would walk toward Hanoi with a secret he refused to let anyone else control.